Max being positive about the removal of adult? That's crazy.
Hello everybody, my name is Ratnose. Usually I try and keep a pretty balanced perspective on WoW. Sometimes I get called out for being a little bit of a shill, a little bit of a positive.
Nah! Nah! Okay. Oh shit. I've just absolutely knocked over my tea. 1 second. Nah. Okay. Right as everyone's like, yeah, he's a shill. Sometimes a shill. Fair play. Fair play. It's still Dratnos has never ranted in his life.
Spin on things that
Surely.
the community's reacting negatively to. But in today's video, I've condensed a bunch of things that irritate me all into one video. So we're going to go on a few different rants here about things that, I guess from a glass half full perspective, a lot of these would be easy slam dunk wins if Blizzard were to fix them. That's the positive spin on some of these. So let's start off.
Can he please for a bit like this where he's just talking full cam, please?
Off with the first one. The first thing I want to complain about is aggro. Aggro being an issue is something that makes sense in a game like this. It's often been over the course of the game's history, especially going back to Classic. Aggro was a big deal. And then after Legion, aggro was at a pretty low point in terms of how hard it was to hold threat as a tank.
Have you heard of the affix called skittish? Skittish. It was a core Does he play the game? What?
And that led to there being some polls where your tank would run in, you'd have Dancing Rune weapon up because you were playing a Blood DK, and you would hold, you'd get threat, you get a bunch of threat, and then you just
No, I wasn't. I played Vengeance.
Run, and you just kite out the pack until it ended. And Blizzard, I think, correctly looked at that and were like, okay, we don't want that. And they nerfed tank threat, and then since then they've buffed it a little bit, but we are still at a point in the game where depending on the tank spec you're playing, the gear you have, your skill level with the tank, and crucially the DPS that you're playing with, holding on to threat can be something where you can be doing a reasonable job, you can be having no intention of kiting the pack, and if you're playing like a Vengeance Demon Hunter, for instance, there have been some bugs associated with this, although most of those have been fixed, and even unbugged, you can still be dropping threat while mostly doing the correct rotation, being on a similar item level if you're playing with...
Yes, so if you're playing the tank correctly, and your DPS are taking threat from you, have you maybe considered that maybe it's their fault and they're playing badly? Just food for thought. You know, just a suggestion that they might be screwing up on one of the core mechanics of this game. However, if his response is going to be uncap AoE for tanks, or just uncap AoE in general, because, you know, if you're holding threat on like 8 mobs and there's 2 there which you're not getting threat on, use capped AoE, I'm done. It's the issue on Vengeance threat, to be fair. I'm guessing they have capped AoE. I bet they have capped AoE. Surely.
Something like a Devastation Evoker, like some melee DPS specs, even if...
So you mean, oh, the Devvoker bursted at the very start of the pack and got aggro. So the Devvoker played wrong, and the Devvoker's a bad player. Simple!
If they're hitting the same target as you as well. So what should aggro be? Well, I think aggro being something that tells you, hey, don't kite too much, right? Like if you kite, aggro is going to be a problem that you'll have to solve, or something that somebody might rip threat on. And also being on pull, where it's like, okay, you're trying to tag in, you know, 10 different mobs from different places, right? You're running in here, and you want to get all of these all together in one pull, then that's something where, okay, maybe aggro can be an issue for you, and that's fine. But if you are pulling all these mobs together, your DPS wait a little bit, you get them all grouped up, you're hitting all of them, you're in melee with them, and then your DPS start doing damage, and then 30 seconds later they rip threat on you on one of the mobs. That's an extremely frustrating situation that luckily doesn't happen all that much to me. My tanks are extremely geared. I have a pretty good handle on holding threat on these different things, and also just, you know, laughing at my DPS players when they die. But this is one of the extra barriers to entry to becoming a tank that I think doesn't need to exist, isn't a particularly fun thing. And in particular, I think that if you're in melee with mobs and...
Oh no, I have to deal with one of the game's core mechanics, which has been in the game since its inception, which by now I should very easily be able to figure out. Boo-hoo, I can't believe this adds difficulty to my role.
hitting them, you shouldn't be dropping threat as a tank like that. It should be reserved for when you're out of range. So what could Blizzard do to fix this? Well, they already have a system in the game that's called the melee threat multiplier.
What do you mean fix it? It's fine.
Where if I'm in melee with a mob, somebody else is going to need to get a higher amount of threat to rip threat from me than if I'm not.
Then they learn the game. Like, here's the thing. You do not have to reduce the barrier of entry to let new players in. Blizzard has done so much for new players. This game is insanely new player friendly. Crazy new player friendly. If they keep dropping down more and more for new players to come in, this game's entire... Just make it an idle game. Like, no. There's a point where you have to just put your foot down and say, learn the game. There's almost no nuances in this game anymore. Pretty much nothing. Like, nah. They've catered so hard already to new players. They should not cater any further, not even 0.1% further to a new player. No. Honestly. This is why the game's boring.
Not in melee with the mob. That could be tuned up further, or potentially having the range associated with it increase from straight up in melee to maybe up to 10.
That's their problem. Like, WoW is not going to be a game for everyone. It's as simple as that. Like, look at PoE. Do you see them being successful? Because they keep being, oh, let's cater to new players and more catering to new players. It's like, no. Here's a complex ass skill tree. Have fun. Good luck. Oh, only 50% of the players killed Hillock. Oh well, we still have one of the most successful ARPGs of all time, still being unrivaled. And by the way, we borderline cloned our game, and now we have two of the most successful ARPGs of all time.
Yards or something like that. I think it could still be kind of unsatisfying there. For me, I'd rather see them take a look at the specific specs that are ripping threat from tanks this season and apply further threat and multiplier reductions to them. Devastation Evoker, even though they rip threat a bunch, actually already have some threat multiplier reductions on abilities like Fire Breath, doing some more of that to abilities like...
Some Reddit threats about disabled people wanting to only play WoW, but should struggle with them. I understand from their POV. Like, I do feel bad for people with disabilities, but like, if you cater games to people with disabilities so hard, then you're gonna lose the people who aren't disabled. They're gonna get bored and move on and not play the game. Already, people want to stop playing this game because it's incredibly boring. Like, by all means, Blizzard, it takes one competitor and you've lost your player base. You can keep all the disabled people, sure, but they're not going to bring in your player population. I mean, your player population is currently, like, so low. For the last, 4 years, group finding has been getting worse and worse and worse. Legit, at this point, I hope Riot MMO comes out soon. I won't play it. I will not play it. I don't care. I don't care for Riot at all. I will not play it. But I hope it comes out and it shows to Blizzard that they made the biggest mistake at every single turn with this game. Pretty much every decision they've done in the last few years has been such a bad decision.
Like in Gulf, like Pyre for them could help as well. And I think
they'll just notice how bad they've made WoW. And how the only reason they've kept the WoW player base is because all the other alternatives on the market are also super bad.
Also some threat multiplier increases to tank abilities that you use in melee could be appropriate as well. So if I throw Glaive a mob, I don't think I should get a huge amount of threat. If I put a Sigil of Flames under a mob, this shouldn't give me a huge amount of threat, although it should probably do a little bit more than it currently does. But if I'm in melee with a mob and it's taking damage from my Immo Aura and it's taking damage from my Soul Cleaves, I think those abilities could have double the threat that they currently do associated with them, and that would go a long way towards fixing that problem. So,
I mean, if DH itself is just having a rough time with threat, then just say that. Aggro doesn't need to be reworked though. Like, yo.
That's problem number one. Rant number one. All right, rant number two. The AOE cap.
So his entire rant was really just, I like Vengeance, but it's not putting enough threat yet. Cool. Buff Vengeance threat generation. Simple. That's it.
I'm sure you expected this to be somewhere in this video. In Shadowlands, Blizzard AOE capped a bunch of classes. They put
remove AOE caps. It's so boring.
Bunch of classes on these hard target caps of 5 or in some cases 8 targets, and they largely backed off of that after it really sucked, down to just a few specs that are still in the game that have hard caps at 5 targets. And it still really sucks for those people.
There's a
for
load of
somebody
specs
like a
with
Fury
it still.
Warrior, for instance, that is hard capped to 5 targets. It's not that you can't succeed in, say, High Mythic Plus as a Fury Warrior. It's just if you are the top 1 Fury Warrior in the world, you'll be able to replicate what the top 700 Moonkins in the world are able to do by rolling their face across the keyboard and hitting the Starfall button and hitting all...
It's because you don't run Spirit Bomb at the moment in keys, and you press Fracture Soul Cleave only, pretty much, other than sigils. Part of me is thinking that they aren't aiming their Soul Cleaves. Like, yo, if you have, yeah, your pack, like, here, yeah, you have Horny Man here, and of course you got your fire around you, your Immo Aura, and if your Soul Cleave is like there, then no shit, are people gonna go there? Yeah, I mean, if something here goes there, then there's a problem. At that point, now I would be like, yeah, buff Soul Cleave threat generation, because it's wrong.
All the mobs by carefully selecting these routes with a perfectly crafted comp that optimizes your spec and fights 5 good targets at a time. And I just think that it's a outdated concept to have the AoE cap if we're not actually going to let the specs that are hard capped at 5 be really great at 5, because as it stands right now,
Or how about just remove the AoE caps, because balancing around Mythic Plus is like the stupidest decision ever.
Like Fury, like, they're good at 5 targets, but they're not great. They're not that much better than, you know, the Moonkins, the Mages, or whatever that are uncapped, and you're watching them, the Unholy DKs, do great damage on 5 targets, and then do twice your damage, or triple your damage on 10 targets, on 15 targets. Is there an argument that, hey, maybe people shouldn't be pulling that many targets? I mean, yeah, Blizzard kind of thought that argument, but then when they first implemented the AoE cap, they didn't AoE cap everybody. If that's actually what you think, you should AoE cap everybody. And if that's not what you think, and what you instead think is, hey, we want some specs to have a niche of big AoE, and some specs to have a niche of small cleave, then how about actually letting the specs that have that small cleave niche be best at those niches? Because as it stands right now, Blizzard has often had seasons where the specs that are uncapped are great at all target counts, but they've really...
The thing is, WoW, like, if WoW only had Mythic Plus, you could do this. But it doesn't. So remove the AoE caps and let people go wild. Some things will be better than others. Simple. Like, then they can work on balancing the rest of the game. When you have these niches, as he's saying, no shit they can't balance this game.
Not yet had a season where there's been a target capped spec and you're like, yeah, I might be target capped, but at least I'm doing twice the Moonkins damage on 5 targets. That's never come close to being true, but there's been so many seasons where the Moonkins are doing twice your damage on 10 targets. So either actually adhere to that philosophy of the AoE cap, or just take it away from the specs that still have it, and it doesn't have to be...
Don't get why they don't do what they do for PvP in terms of having a Mythic Plus modifier and plus only type of changes. Because they balance the entire game around Mythic Plus, man. It's just not working because they have to... like, 80% of their balance is on PvE, yeah? And probably 80% of that 80% is for Mythic Plus. The remaining 20% is for Raid. And for the rest of the 20% of the game is casual content and PvP. So in their eyes, they don't need to do something special for Mythic Plus because they're already doing the most for Mythic Plus.
Fully. Soft caps on 7 are fine. Soft caps on 8 are fine. Which turns out those specs work out just fine. You know, they're a little bit less likely to be good every season than the completely uncapped specs. But at least it's not as bad as being hard capped at 5 like Fury and a couple of other specs still.
Stop waffling. Remove the AoE caps. It's that simple. People would, like, honestly think it'd be awesome to see any spec with huge numbers in big AoE pools and whatnot. That makes it vastly more entertaining than someone going, okay guys, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do put a 5 here, this is where the Fear Warriors cooldowns are optimal here, if I'm going to pull off 8 here, as this is where the 8 caps characters cooldowns come off cooldown, and yeah, then we're going to keep cycling through until we get to the boss and we're going to kill the boss. And it's like, no, just pull everything, do massive damage, and all of a sudden the MDI looks cooler.
Up next, it's of course Valor Stones. My question is, what are these accomplishing by still being in the game? Because, from my experience, all of my characters tend to basically either not care about Valor Stones because they have enough, or they're at 0 Valor Stones, even though when I woke up this morning, they had 2,000 Valor Stones. Warrior's a great example of this because, you know, sometimes you get 2 two-handers to upgrade, and that's super Valor Stone.
Right, let me handle this one. This is an MMORPG. You should expect to grind. Valor stays in. It keeps a grind going for your gear. It makes sense. That's why they're still in the game. What could be done to make it better? Make other content outside of Mythic Plus drop a decent amount of Valor Stones. Simple. Done.
Intensive. But even other than that, I think a lot of people experienced this during the Turbo Boost, where they had a character that was capped at 2,000 for months. And then the Turbo Boost came out, and all of a sudden, they're out of Valor Stones, and they're looking at my guide videos of how to actually farm up more Valor Stones efficiently. Which I guess, on the one hand, it's, you know, it makes sense if there's activities that Blizzard wants to incentivize in the game, making them the good sources of Valor Stones. But on the other hand, they keep buffing these sources of Valor Stones that are also the sources of crests, right? Which, in my opinion, if you have the crest to upgrade something, you know, you've earned those crests. You either earned the Valor Stones as well, or you should have earned the Valor Stones as well, and Blizzard is just under-rewarding Valor Stones from whatever content you're getting the crests from, or you were earning the Valor Stones, but you were earning them against this comically low cap of 2,000 Valor Stones, which isn't even enough to fully upgrade a two-handed weapon all the way up its upgrade track. Blizzard either should think about Valor Stones and be like, okay, yeah, we would like Valor Stones to come from these specific activities that we want to push players to do, and so this is the source of Valor Stones, and then these are the sources of crest.
Finally, like, bringing in other content, like having World Quest drop a load of it, having Visions drop a load of it, just adding small events in the entire game, encourage people to go in the open world and not be crammed into instance content all the time, would be so good for the game.
And hey,
it's refreshing to hear someone like this say this as well.
I think people wouldn't like that, but I think that's better than the sort of half measure that they're doing right now with it, where that's sort of surreptitiously what they're saying, and then you can maybe get around it.
Like, honestly, I think it would also be great. They could make Mythic Plus and raids, whatnot, drop no Valor, and just put tons of Valor in open world content. It'd be goated. It'd be goated. Bring back heavy incentive for the open world. Be so good.
Or two, the cap of 2,000 is just a crazy cap to me. Like, what is the damage that would be done if there was a cap of 5,000 instead of 2,000? Would people be hoarding Valor Stones, or, you know, not spending their upgrades and just continuing to run content? No, I don't think so. I don't think there's a case where people have 2,000 Valor Stones and they're thinking, yeah.
I understand the 2,000 cap, because you get that point where it's like, you know, if they're doing a turbo boost, then, hey, as far as they're concerned, you're actually going to have at least a decent bit of a grind to keep going. So I kind of get that. They don't want you to, like, they never like you over stockpiling for stuff. And it's their way of being like, right, yeah, those who are sweaty and have no life aren't going to have too much of an advantage of those who have a life. Yeah. This is trash tier MMO. Yeah, you're stating the obvious, mate.
You know, I wouldn't want to spend these Valor Stones, but I guess since I'm at the cap of 2,000, I'll use these. Like, no, everybody's upgrading when they've got the good upgrades to do with Valor Stones, and it just sucks when you hit the 2,000. Maybe you look at your gear and you're like, oh, I guess I can actually upgrade this. But usually people are just going to send those upgrades anyways, so I don't think there's any bad behavior that people, any hoarding or something that you're going to do, which is usually the reason that those sorts of caps are put in place. And if the cap just went up to something like 5,000, then at least when you get 2 upgrades in the same reset, which can happen very easily, right? You take an upgrade out of your vault, it's Tuesday, and then you go raid, and then all of a sudden your character gets an upgrade or 2, and now your 2,000 Valor Stones are not going to go very far. So raise the cap, increase the amount of sources that they come from, or just delete the damn things, because, again, everything that drops crests, I think
Delusion is a bad take.
So then what's the point of having the Valor Stones as well as the crests? Just let people get the upgrades that they've earned with their crests, and...
It's just as simple as, like, letting Valor drop from other sources of content.
You know, have Valor Stones, I don't know, be for cosmetics. Wrap them into the Resonance Crystal system instead, and have Resonance Crystals be your cosmetic.
I mean, why do Resonance Crystals even exist? I don't get it.
Thing, and buy stuff with that, but I think Valor Stones definitely do not need to exist anymore.
They legit could have just been like, right, yeah, the cosmetics you can buy with Valor. Your leftover Valor, boom, spend it. Instead of just, like, sitting on 2k Valor all the time, like, when you're done gearing.
Anymore. Next rant, it's the Mythic Lockout system. This is another thing where it's a relic of the game from before. So Mythic Raid...
Yeah, but it's not a good farm. The Resonance Crystal system sucks. Honestly. It's so dead. It doesn't need to exist. In fact, it takes away from Valor sources in the game. If stuff dropped Valor instead of Resonance Crystals, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Yeah, true.
Used to be a special, place that you would go into with only your guild, with your preset group of players. Back when cross-realm raids worked, cross-realm Mythic didn't. And that was something that opened up midway through the season, usually after the Hall of Fame filled up. Blizzard have eased off on that restriction, but they continue to keep the outdated system of Mythic saving you to a specific instance ID rather than to bosses. So if I have this heroic lockout here, I can go and join anybody else's heroic that's on Cauldron of Carnage, or Rick Reverb, or even the bosses I've already killed, even Vexy, or One Armed Bandit, or Mugsy. I could go do those bosses on heroic if I extended this lockout and just not get loot from them. But with Mythic, if I extended this lockout, if I had this lockout active, I am locked to this specific instance ID, and I can't queue up with anybody else, even somebody else who has the exact same set of bosses defeated. I can't do Mythic with that person. Which means if you have a guild that, you want to go help them out, kill some Mythic bosses, you are committing your entire character's Mythic week on that guild. If you're pugging Mythic Raid...
But their idea is that you're not meant to keep practicing the Mythic bosses, as much as you want. Or getting as many kills as you want. It's meant to be you get the kill, you can do it again next week, or you can hold off. Like, if you could keep killing Mythic bosses over and over and over again, you could get so much practice, and Mythic would probably become even more free. Like, nah. I kind of respect the lockout system of IDs. Just playtime increase for players so they look better to Microsoft? Nah, Resonance Crystals definitely do not do that. I think people just ignore it completely.
And the raid kills Vexy and the Gear Grinders, then all of a sudden you can't kill a Cauldron of Carnage. Well, too bad. That raid is going to fall apart. One person can hearth out of that pug raid, and then all of a sudden you have 19 people in there. Nobody's going to want to join because of this lockout system.
I mean, you also shouldn't be pugging Mythic, really. Valid point to you, since I got to sticks and one pool a guy left, and they can just make the bosses harder if they remove this, I guess. Like, no, I disagree. Like, someone left, fine, that's the risks of a pug raid. What if I want to do Mythic? What I should be doing is getting a consistent team together. I shouldn't be relying on pugs. Like, it's actually really lucky that I can do 3 bosses with pugs at the moment. I don't think Mythic should really be a puggable thing. It's meant to be the top of the top difficulty, and it's meant to require a group. If a pug lets you down, well, that's the risk you take.
If that lockout system didn't exist, you could maybe fill somebody back in and fight Cauldron of Carnage, and that would be good, and then everybody else could get their 2-box, and then whoever, you know, got that save to just Cauldron of Carnage could go back and get Vexy with another group, or maybe you'd even reset and get them that Vexy kill to help them out after you've done Cauldron of Carnage, something like that. Could this lead to some problems, like in Heroic, where, you know, maybe sometimes people join just for the first boss and then leave, and that's kind of cringe? Yeah, but you could just fix it the same way as you do in Heroic, where now you refill the group. Blizzard have said, you know, they want to keep Mythic being...
Like, this... I don't think he realises how long it takes to refill a group now. It's so slow. There's not many people out there now. The game is a declining population. You can't just band-aid it by saying, yeah, refill the group. Who's gonna join? You don't have many people there to join anymore. And it's been going down and down and down for the last how many years now? Mythic should be only guild run or a set of 20 players. Yeah, either guild run or community run. Like, if you're pugging it, you're risking it. That's it. You're just risking it.
This feeling of, you know, being an exclusive hard difficulty mode, but I really think that that's already accomplished by how hard the bosses are, and the lockout system working the way that it does right now creates this really awkward situation where
he'd feel like that probably because he's a high-end raider, I'm gonna be honest. Mythic also has a barrier of entry, so some players feel a sense of fear to it. Good.
If you have the boss difficulty curve, the way that it looks in Liberation of Undermine, some people are heavily encouraged to sneak out the back door of the hotel, which for some reason doesn't have a firewall up. And if that didn't exist, it would be an absolute nightmare to pug Mythic. But almost all the Mythic pugs now do that because you really want to fight the harder bosses first, so that then when you get people saved, you then go and do the easy boss, and that works out really well, and you actually don't have somebody leave.
It's very nice convenience for pugging Mythic, but, like, honestly, it also shouldn't be there. It just should be guild run.
Eve after killing the easy boss and then not being able to kill the hard boss, right? Because you don't actually get saved yet. So that's a really cringe, you know, it's a really cringe counterplay to something that would be even more cringe if they didn't make that counterplay work, right? If you actually had to kill Vexy before you could go to Cauldron of Carnage on Mythic.
Yeah, that'd be so cringe. Like we've had it in every raid prior? I feel like this is the first raid where we can actually go to a harder boss first.
That would really, really suck, and I know at the first few weeks of the patch, if anybody was pugging, which is pretty rare, that's something that would happen. Now, is pugging Mythic supposed to be something that's super supported by Blizzard? You know, maybe not, but they made it cross-realm. You know, they opened up cross-realm Mythic from the get-go. What's the problem with letting the difficulty of whether you can pug these bosses be based on how hard the bosses are, rather than, you know, the stupid lockout restriction? An argument that people will make...
Because it's an MMO, not a pug game. You're not just going and pressing quick play with every single game mode you do. Like, the highest difficulty of an MMO should require social skills, should require you getting a group together. I strongly disagree with the fact that Mythic should be puggable in any capacity. It is puggable at the moment. And to be honest, I think if they tried to do stuff to stop people from pugging, then they'd catch something else in the crossfire. But the way it is definitely, like, the best case scenario. Like, okay, it seems we can pug some bosses, that's fine. We should be grateful it's possible. But Mythic should not be puggable. LFD encourages people to not put in effort, but it should definitely be puggable. No! Like, it's an MMO, man. The game should be leaning more towards being an MMO rather than leaning even more further from being an MMO. Like, you have LFR, you have normal, you have heroic, which is puggable. The top difficulty should require what I said it should require earlier.
against this is that it would mess with the race to world first or the first few weeks of mythic progression for really good.
Like, if you don't have the social skills to get yourself into a group or form a group properly, and you're relying on pugging, then hey, you're not good enough to full clear mythic raid. That's it.
Guild, even like my guild, we would be looking at doing something like, yeah, let's do some Vexy splits, right? Vexy's really easy. We can just kill it with, 5 mains and 15 alts 4 times, and then re-merge our group together for the harder bosses later. And yes, that is something that you would be able to do if the Mythic Lockout were removed in the first few weeks. But what you could do is just not do it for the first few weeks, because nobody's really pugging Mythic anyways for those first few weeks, as I mentioned, right? It's a very hard thing to do, is to pug Mythic Raid when everybody is just getting started with the patch. By the time that it's later in the patch then, when people are actually looking...
Yeah, but Jamie, they already have the option to play lower difficulties. The harder difficulties don't need to be catered to them. I also don't think the entire game should be, like, based around the higher difficulties. But, if you're not good enough to do something, you shouldn't be able to do it. They can still do an equivalent, which is easier.
Looking to pug Mythic, that's when you could remove the restriction, which I guess I understand that, Blizzard are trying to move away from these switches that they have to flip halfway through every season, but I still think that would be a huge increase in accessibility. It would let people who, top out at AOTC instead start...
Here we go. Accessibility is just... You don't need everything to be accessible. You have enough that's accessible.
Their toes into the first few bosses of Mythic, and who knows, maybe some people would have a lot of fun and be like, yeah, actually, this Mythic thing isn't actually all that scary, and it's a lot of fun, and, maybe I'll try and join a Mythic Progression Guild instead next year.
Or they could just try and form a group and do Mythic, as is intended. Maybe you have a challenge mode without any extra rewards, but it's not going to be popular, especially with a dwindling player base. I mean, I also don't see the problem with capping gear at Heroic and whatnot. Like, Mythic Raid gear, or Mythic Raiding for character power or progression, I don't see the need for that, to be honest. But also at the same time, the highest difficulty should be, well, as is.
Could be something that would really help people get into that ecosystem, so I feel like that would be a very good change they could make. Next rant here about the kick change. So this was a controversial change that they put into the game recently, where when a mob has a cast, if
you have a small amount of people now wanting to play at a super high hardcore level and there are hardly any players left, and there'll be almost no one to play with. Well, I mean, at that point the game's dead anyway. But there are definitely enough people out there to be able to form a group. We started in the Kilhaya as a very small group of players, and now we're getting a team together and we are going to be raiding Mythic properly. It is dead? You are wrong. You are objectively wrong.
If you stop the mob, it doesn't go on cooldown anymore. Now, for the history of dungeons...
Like, if you were right, then I wouldn't have been able to get a Mythic team going for my guild. I would not have been able to do the scenario that you've just mentioned. I agree with one button rotation, stupid, but like, there's no way you're going to be able to be competitive with that. There's such a high penalty. Like, you'll be able to World Crest, LFR, regular dungeons. You would not be able to PvP with that. Yes, LFG and pogging is very empty. There is definitely a dying population, but the game is not dead. And that's sort of the way how it should be. You shouldn't be able to just pog your way through a Mythic raid. Isn't it even slower now?
In the game, generally that hasn't been true. Generally, if you stun a mob, it will not recast whatever it was casting when that stun ends. But Blizzard have made some good arguments of like, yeah, hey.
Yeah, WoW is dead compared to a few years ago, and even more dead. Yeah, sure, that's what dying means. But is WoW dead at the moment? No. That happens. Player population falls off. And yes, WoW's rate of decay, player population decay, is definitely due to them making bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and the game objectively being so much worse than what it used to be. However, the game still has enough life to keep going. It is not dead. It could grow. It could grow. They just keep making bad decisions.
You know, for consistency's sake and not making...
You're also wrong. Because if it could not come back to life, if it could not be fixed, then there's no way people can be sitting here and saying, like, giving good suggestions for the game or coming up with ways for the game to improve. It would be a simple case of, yeah, no, they've screwed it up. And, like, no one would be like, oh, well, maybe they could do this.
Stuns and AoE stops, the meta for M+, you know, we want to make them less powerful, so they're not actually gonna stop the cast anymore. They're just gonna temporarily stop it, and then the mob's gonna start their cast again as soon as they come off the stun. Unfortunately, that's actually not what has happened. Stuns and AoE stops have become more powerful rather than less, as a pack has gone from needing one AoE stop to stop all of its casts to now needing constant AoE stops if you want to stop those casts from going through, because otherwise the mobs are just going to recast. This has also led to the effect of Sigil of Silence and Solar Beam, mostly, although technically Warrior can...
I mean, if a game's dead to you, cool. If you don't like the game anymore, cool. But, you know, when other people are putting suggestions forth of how they think the game could be better, like, saying the game's dead is not the right thing to do.
Can do this as well with Disrupting Shout. It's a little bit more costly to talent this. These effects that actually AoE kick end up being super duper OP, because when you think about something like a Shockwave, you know, Shockwave is going to stun mobs for 2 seconds, and it's going to stop their cast for however late into that cast bar you go, plus the 2 seconds of the stun. Whereas something like an AoE kick, you know, a Disrupting Shout, a Sigil of Silence, a Solar Beam, are actually going to be able to potentially stop multiple enemies for 10, 15 seconds, however long it puts that spell cast on CD. So I don't think that was intentional. I don't think that making Sigil of Silence and Solar Beam more OP was an intended part of this plan. And I also don't...
But if you've seen how long their cooldowns are, like, okay, some specs have stronger disruption effects. What's the problem?
Think that, you know, again, Shockwave, something that has gone more important now is coordinating your usages of the stock shockwaves. Now, they could also fix this with dungeon design. If we had pulls like this Triple Thunderer pull in the Rookery, and we looked at these mobs and we were like, okay, we are going to reduce the damage of Lightning Bolt. We're going to increase the cast time of Lightning Bolt. We're going to put a cooldown on Lightning Bolt so that the mobs don't chain cast it at you. And we're going to make that cooldown longer. Those would be ways that maybe this could work with the kick change. But if you're going to make packs like this, I think that it used to be gameplay that you'd go into a pack like this and be like, okay, I'll stop this kick, right? And you hit the mob with a kick or a stop and a stun.
Changing AoE disruption effects will not break meta. This is gaming in general now. Meta is fully baked into everything. Like, I don't think any changes to development can break this sort of meta cycle. Some things will be good, some things will be bad. This is how gaming works now. We're more knowledgeable than we were like 10, 20 years ago.
Right? Or anything like that.
And if you want to perform the best, you need to bring the best. And I get that some people are stupid and they will bring only the meta to really easy content. They are stupid people though.
A stun, a disorient, anything like that would count as a stop, and that would be great. And if you were doing it in a pug situation as well, you could roll up to a pack like this and you could be like, I'm going to be helpful. I'm going to press my Shockwave button. Now if you go into a pug run like this and you hit your shockwave button there and your mage hits kick at the same time, you've actually griefed. You always had griefed a little bit because you'd use 2 resources when you only need 1, but now if my shockwave hits the mob before my mage's counterspell hits the mob, it's actually going to not be locked out, and it's just going to start casting again right out of there. So the premium on really technical coordination of your group in a not particularly fun way has gone up. Something that, you know, if you look at Blizzard's desire to remove our ability to track each other's cooldowns, that philosophy is entirely at odds.
Why can't you just talk in voice and say, hey, I'm going to shockwave this pack, mage can counterspell afterwards? That doesn't sound hard to me. Loki's like a 12, people prefer DH over a Brewmaster. But of course, like, a lot of that is just due to the information we have out there available. I don't see how there's going to be any way of breaking over that. Well, like I said earlier, if you're playing with a pug, you're accepting you're going to be doing worse. If you're playing with a full team, then you're going to be able to perform this stuff. Simple. Like, there's risks you take by doing stuff in a pug instead of doing stuff in a team.
Odds.
Better is, of course.
Doing this sort of juggling of mobs casts with AoE stops.
Like, trying to sit here and say, if we got rid of this, then maybe people wouldn't play meta as much. Yes, they will. It will stay. No matter what. You cannot stop that. It's in. It's a core part of all games now.
Way that it works in this post-change world. So, they should either revert this change, dramatically nuke how often there are mobs like...
The game is puggable. The high end, yeah, the very top end, if you want to progress as far as you can, shouldn't be puggable. You shouldn't be able to just be like, yeah, I'm the best of the best, and I had no communication or anything like that. I just pugged. Like, no. You should be forming teams. Well, the changes they did were fine. Changes the way interrupts the... Expand on that, what do you mean? I mean, pugging title was just dumb. But then, that's just Mythic Plus, I guess. It's still not really a competitive bracket. If you're just running in and you're like, oh yeah, I got it without needing coordination, communication, MMO. Okay. Congratulations on your rank 1 title in a joke bracket. Well done. It should be possible with good players. Yeah, good players with coordination. If they're sitting there and voice and coordinating their stuff, then yeah, they should perform better than people who don't. Simple as.
Like this, that spam lightning bolt at you, that's another option. And then, regardless, they should look at it and they should be like, do we really want to make Solar Beam and Sigil of Silence be the only abilities in the game, and I guess and Disrupting Shout, that actually work the way that everything used to? You know, when we look at the meta this season and we see Vengeance Demon Hunters and Moonkins everywhere, there's a lot of good reasons for that. But it certainly doesn't help that Solar Beam and Sigil of Silence actually work on these things in a way that's fun. And I think that's the big thing.
If what he's saying is more things need an AoE disruption, then yeah, sure, I agree with that. I don't know, I feel like if you could get a balance of everything having its own thing, then that's amazing. Or if they're not going to give everything its own thing, then give everyone really similar tools. There are weak auras. So there's weak auras which take out the communication. Low skill bracket. Low skill bracket. Simple as.
Is when you think about doing keys, it's fun that I can hit Stormbolt.
Like, if you can just get some weak aura to do the communication coordination for the team, like, I don't know how that's not considered cheating. Team games, you should be communicating, coordinating. And it like, that should be part of this skill check for a team. If you don't need that, it sounds to me like that's cheating. I mean, that could also be more fun. If there were less stops and interrupts needed, then yeah. I agree with that. I think that's better than trying to change all the disruptions that we have. Looking at the other side, would be way more entertaining. Remove target cap, let us do big packs, and stop making everything be like, deadly AoE, deadly AoE! Like, 14 mobs with a deadly AoE which needs to be stopped. Boring! People want to see big nukage. And yes, there should be a point where you need to coordinate all this stuff. You should be communicating with people to do that though, and not using an add-on to do it for you! In-game content just needs to be fun, doesn't matter how hard it is. If it's easy for someone like you who's played the game thousands of hours, it doesn't mean it needs to be easy. What? I think it should require key skills which the game, which, you know, a team game should require, such as communication. But I don't think it should be, like, the entire base game should be tailored around this sort of stuff. But what we are talking about is beyond regular end-game content and more the top end. I'm not saying that you need to be a voice in voice for doing your weekly keys. I mean, you don't. They're easy enough. I do think it should be more fun. But, you know, if you're, like, you're not pushing at that point. We're talking about the point past where it's like you're doing stuff for your mainstream endgame content, and you're trying to get into competitive content. Trashing dungeons are way more dangerous than the bosses. Yeah, it's kind of dumb. But I guess they consider raid to be the experience where the bosses are the main thing. That is kind of a weird way of looking at it. I think all the time bosses should provide more of a challenge than any for trash. Trash should just be get them all together, big nuke, looks awesome, feels good, simple as. Yes, we've been talking about the 1% of the player base for most of this video. High-end game content should be difficult and, yeah, not something anyone could do. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The top of the top should not be made more accessible. Competitive content doesn't need to be made accessible. It should be hard.
Bolt on a mob and be like, no, I'm stopping you from doing your thing, and then the Stormbolt finishes and I've succeeded against that, and turning that instead into like a 3-second pushing that problem down into the future makes the pull a lot less fun and a lot more stressful. So I think that this is, it's one of those classic Blizzard changes that you look at it and you're like, yeah, this makes sense. But also, despite it making sense, it's making the game less fun. Like, there's a lot of logic, a lot of lines that they can write about why it's supposed to be more fun.
But then also you've gone past the point of fun and you go into the point of competitiveness. You can't expect being competitive to be all fun, sunshine and rainbows. Definitely spend more time on casual content. Yes, I agree. If they can't get that right, they need to focus on that first before challenge content. I agree with that. But what this video is talking about is effectively trying to make competitive content more accessible. Which is just wrong.
Fun this way, but just, at least in my experience, it's less fun to play the game that way. Up next, the Death Knight raid buff situation. Why doesn't Death Knight have a raid buff? Well, maybe it's because Death Grip is a really powerful effect that we consider to be basically the Death Knight raid buff. Okay, if that's the case, why don't we design any fights where Death Grip is good? We have a fight called Mugsy, where we're spawning these ads from the Goblin Guided Rocket, and these things aren't death grippable. We have Gallywix Mythic, where these ads spawn, and they spawn already exactly all grouped up where you want them to be. No need for death grip, no need for mass grip. So what's the point? Where are people gonna play Death Knights in Mythic Raid? They're not. They're not playing any of them. Maybe you're gonna play them on a fight like Styx Bunk Junker. You're gonna have your tank swap over to Blood DK, but you're just not seeing Death Knights played on these fights in the raid, and you're not going to in any tier unless they either A, design a fight so that Death Grip is good. Now, it doesn't have to be OP, but at least doing something like, honestly, making the Volunteer Rocketeer Death Grippable is a huge thing. Like, why is that not true? You just have a mob that casts a Disintegration Beam, does a lot of damage on somebody. It's not the end of the world. Everybody deals with it because it's unCCable. But if an argument for playing DK was, oh, right, we can just grip this under boss and kill it down, at least you'd be thinking,
Hear me out. Make Soul Reaper have a raid-wide damage effect when it's used successfully in execute, that will slowly increase everyone's damage. Not by much, but just a little bit. And so it absolutely buffs execute windows. So you know, most of the people that left think the casual content is lackluster and not innovative enough. Once they get that fixed, they can focus on challenging content for the 1%. I agree with you, but also this video is more focused around the challenging content, which is why we're talking about it. Like, if you want people back to WoW, a slightly different discussion, major different discussion even. You do have to make the core of the game to be much better. And in a sense, you got that bang to rights. The older content was done way better, and they're just recycling worse versions. Like, since Legion, we've just had a worsened version of Legion Invasions every single season. Well, not every season, but every time they try and do an event like it. Like, Blizzard's priorities should first be on, like, the story. Get that done first. The story and leveling experience, get that sorted first. Then on regularly queuable content, yeah? You want to get your dungeons, your base dungeons, and your lower tier raids, and your battlegrounds to be absolutely fire. You want people to be logging in and constantly playing it. Then you want to get into a place where you're going to get people more funneled and consistently playing. This would be rated PvP and Mythic Plus. Then you want to do the competitive aspects. Then you want to get your Mythic Raid sorted, your high-end PvP balance sorted, your high-end Mythic Plus balance sorted. I'm sorry, world content should be prioritized very early on in that system as well. Pretty much like after you've done the story and leveling experience, like the world content should be absolutely fire, making you want to log on. Yeah. Legion was straight fire. But now, like, the game is just focused around how do they make the MDI more challenging? How do they make the race to world first more of a grab? How are we gonna, actually no, they're not even thinking about PvP, which is an absolute mistake. An insane mistake. The amount of population they could bring back just by doing some simple PvP changes is insane. It could almost be their first priority. Their first priority should still be the story though. But PvP should be a very high priority. Legion of way more world quests, yep. And much more rewarding. And on top of that, you could also get a follower to make it even more rewarding. Legion world quests, like, world quests have gotten worse every single expansion, with the exception of Dragonflight, where it got slightly better. But yeah, world quests are negligible. They need to be brought back up to a Legion standard. Legion just perfected it, and then Blizzard somehow didn't replicate that. They also got rid of the system where you did 4 world quests for a faction and got bonus loot. Why? Why would you get rid of that? It was just another goal, regardless of how entertaining it was. It was another thing to incentivize people to play. But no, they just got rid of that for like no reason. It's insane.
It's nice that I have a Death Knight in my raid. I would like to add a Death Knight to my raid. But as it stands right now with the design of these bosses, there's no reason for you to be like, oh yeah, I want to have a DK in my raid. I mean, I guess AMZ's good, but almost every class these days has something like that, right? Like Zephyr, Mass Barrier, something create Time Spiral, right? All these different effects that everybody has.
DK, like, it could be done like Warlock, in a way where it's like, it doesn't provide any raid buffs, but it provides some good, useful stuff for the raid all the time. You know? Like, I don't get why there isn't more done for DK to make it brought a bit more. Like, even more casual teams are seeing DK and it's like, yeah, why would I bring that? That's just wasting a spot for the most part. Yeah, I don't know, like, I could also just use Curse of Weakness as a Warlock. And then DK provides nothing. I don't know, just give DK something.
Rallying Cry, Darkness, right, that are all on a similar power level to Anti-Magic Zone, depending on the fight, depending on whether it's physical damage or not, which in a lot of cases it is. So, either give Death Knight a raid buff. At this point, everybody else has got one. Let's give Death Knight one.
Well, not everyone else has got a raid buff, but sure.
Or design fights that, you know, intentionally to make it so that people will think, I would like a Death Knight for this. And do that consistently for bosses in these raids, for you know, end bosses, second last bosses in raids, because otherwise Death Knight gets relegated to being the spot where if you're in a top guild and you're the
I mean, if summoning is seen as a raid buff, then that is brain damage. That is brain damage. Healthstones I can agree with. Healthstones I can agree with. But summoning, no. Like, yeah. Okay, fair. If I look at every class, pretty much everything bar DK does have something. Yeah? You've got Warlocks with Healthstones. You've got Mages with Arcane Intellect. You've got Priests with Power Word Fortitude. You've got Rogues with their Poison. DHs with their debuff. Monks with their debuff. Druids with Mark of the Wild. You've got Shamans with the Sky Fury. Hunters, I guess, have Hunter's Mark, but that's so irrelevant. But Hunters are just a go-to mechanics bitch. So you know, I thought Hunters should get their spot for being a mechanics bitch. You've got what's the next male class? Evokers with the movement CDR. You've then got Paladins with Auras, Warriors with Battle Shout, and DKs with good magic handling. But if a raid doesn't really need magic, then I don't know. Like, DKs are pretty tanky and can do some mechanics which require tankiness, but not really that well anymore. And like, they can grip stuff, but it's rare. Okay, Gate is fair. But I don't know. Give DK something more. DK definitely needs something more. I mean, you don't even need summons. Everywhere's so easily accessible. Like, who cares? But yeah, when you got a raid, which is mostly fizz damage and no grips required, yeah, they made DK useless this tier. Like, it's just, oh, is that guy really good at DK and doing good damage? And, yeah, I'll take him for my casual team. That's it.
Death Knight main? You know, every 6 months you're just flipping a coin between whether you get a vacation or whether you're actually getting to progress the raid. Our next one is a small rant, but what's going on with...
I feel like re-clear just isn't even a consideration. Like, okay, sure. But, you know, that's about it. People can still get there very fast. You're not saving much time. And if you are saving a lot of time, then chances are the people you're summoning are just lazy pricks who did not prepare.
With the reps in Undermine,
they
doubled
suck.
the rate that you achieve reputation with these guys, and I do a decent amount of stuff. Like, I've been doing my 3 weeklies every week. But if you actually want to farm a bunch of, like, if you want to get exalted with all 4 of these cartels, not to mention the 5th cartel, which isn't even shown here, that requires so much gaming, so much doing of these, like turning in chat lists to the cartels instead of to the machine, and doing these world quests that are giving 300 rep each, the side quests that are giving 200 each, with the old reputation system where you need to get like 40,000 rep to get all the way up to exalted with these reps. And these ones, for the first time, actually have Paragon rep rewards, which, you know, makes sense because the Paragon rewards for these other reputations just have nothing in them, right? It's like 1 Radiant Echo.
Having Paragon boxes is good. I mean, the death skips are kind of cringe, not gonna lie. Like, I don't know, that's just niche stuff which higher end guilds do most of the time. A lot of places I know don't do, a lot of guilds, probably in entire games population, do not do that. And there's not much very clear. Like, okay, sure, the summon's great for higher end stuff as well, but I don't know, it's still minor. You missed Hall of Fame by like a day. How are you not higher end? In this raid, yes, there is too much trash. Too much awkward and annoying trash. It feels horrible to get around in Undermine. I will say that. Last raids felt... Okay, Bloodbound, sure. But for the most of it, nah. I do feel like they need to give some rewards to thingy. To raid trash, so it doesn't feel completely useless. But yeah.
And then 2 potions or something like that. But it's weird because it feels like these Paragon reps are ones where you actually can fill out the Paragon a few times pretty easily. You know, you just do some normal stuff, normal weekly reset stuff, and you can get a decent amount of progress towards these Paragon reps. And then the cartel...
I mean, like... First of all, I don't see the problem with people farming BOEs. It's fair enough. But second of all, yeah, they did this season awfully. Such an L. It was done so badly.
Tales of Undermine ones are much more cringe, and also I got Bilgewater to Exalted. I don't want to keep choosing Bilgewater now because I want to get all the others to Exalted. And that one actually, now these ones actually do have mounts behind Paragon, so this is a small deal, but it is still very confusing to me.
I feel like they shouldn't have made these reps you pick between one or the other, and then this would not be a complaint and everything would be completely fine. But like, I feel zero motivation to do these reps because it's like, oh, pick one, farm it, pick the other and farm it. Like, no, just let me do them all. Let me do them all at my own pace. I don't see why I have to pick between one or the other.
I can see myself coming back to Undermine, you know, even long beyond 10.2, not because I really want to, but just because this is by far the least painful way to get rep, is just doing these 3 weeklies. They give 2,000 rep each, and then, you know, not touching the side gigs that give 200 each, and trying to farm up these, the farmable sources or the world quests that only give 300, and that just seems a little off to me. That seems like a small thing that just doesn't make much sense about this patch, especially when you factor in the fact that they literally doubled the rep income for all these reps, and it's still this slow and weird. I feel like, you know, side gigs should be giving 1,000 each, not 200, something like that. All right, for my next rant, I'd like to begin with a question.
Just
which embellishments are you wearing on your character right now? I can be reasonably confident that it's probably either Ascendance and a Writhing Armor Band, maybe Duskweave, maybe Dawnweave, maybe some prismatic focusing lenses, maybe you're some kind of cringe PvPer, and they do different stuff. Or just maybe you're a tank and you've got the Adrenal Surge clasp and you're feeling awfully stupid as...
Let me say this as someone who profits a lot of embellishments. Delete embellishments. They're shit for the game. It's a gold sink so that you can be on par with everyone else. But it provides no fun. Doesn't change your gameplay at all. And it's just incredibly boring. It is just a wild token cash grab. I don't mind you having crafted gear, which kind of mitigates the god-awful myth track system, or lets you choose your stats a bit better. But just delete embellishments. They suck. It was an awful system from Dragonflight, and it's like, it now doesn't feel as bad RNG influencing your damage anymore, but it's still like, it's so boring. It's so boring.
As the Delve Belt is coming out soon. Those are kind of the main options. Did you know that there are a bunch of really cool different embellishments that they've got this time around?
There's not a single cool embellishment. There's the set
bonus ones, the Fury of the Stormrook set that you can get. There's boots, you know, that give you speed and do holy damage after you get enough stacks of it. There's a lot of cool things here, but basically none of them are things you would ever consider actually using because the numbers on almost all of the cool embellishments this expansion just suck. Now, could there be an argument that, like, hey, these are for casual players who don't care as much about the fact that this is simming less than, you know, Ascendance or something? Yeah, maybe, but I feel like casual players don't really want to, you know, deal with the problem of juggling around a 2-set, for instance.
This was made with competitive players in mind, and then made so only casuals can use it. Casuals would never pick this up, and they're always going to follow what someone else has told them is good to run. No, like, it's only higher end players which are going to think, maybe I could try and make this work. Oh no, it sucks. Never mind.
They're going to have less access to tier of their choice, so the tier that drops for them is just going to be what they're wearing, and almost all of these set bonuses are filling some of your tier slots as well. And then this sort, like, look at this 2-set, right? You get a floating orb of fire pollen nearby. Stepping into the orb gathers it, increasing your highest secondary stat for 12 seconds.
That's actually decent,
allies
to
who
be
step
fair.
near you will also receive a little bit of a secondary stat. Now, does that effect, which is reminiscent of things
Change
like
the gameplay a bit.
Transmitter, right? Those sorts of things, is that kind of thing something that our more casual players will enjoy doing and be like, yeah, you know what? This does less numbers, but I'm willing to do it. Or is this the kind of effect where it's like, oh, maybe a high-end player will look at this and be like, yeah,
this is
I've
more
got a fairly similar
tailored
rotation.
to a
I feel like
higher
I'm
end
in
player.
control of my rotation. I'm willing to take on this extra quest and this extra complexity now in my rotation in exchange for a small DPS increase. I think that's what would make sense for this kind of effect. So
Yeah, I
if you're
agree
going to
on
make
this.
embellishments that suck like this one, either actually make it have some excitement value for casual players, right? Like do something that is have it be a lower number.
Hear me out. The passive stuff that we got already is fine for casual players because they're already like having fun with the just rotation in general and learning that. And some of the more complex stuff, which is like, right, here's an orb to go and interact with, and then you get more power, should be better for the higher end players. That's it. That's as simple as this discussion needs to be.
Number, but something actually really cool, the kind of thing
Or just delete embellishments because they're stupid.
that you know, is exciting to casual players, or if you're gonna make it this sort of weird,
And a world
fiddly,
token
extra
profit
gameplay
machine.
challenge thing, then it should actually reward you with more damage by doing that thing
Agreed.
than, you know, Ascendance or Duskweave or whatever, Dawnweave, any of those kind of things.
Completely agree with this.
And or, you know, make some embellishments that are cool defensive ones, something like that. You know, obviously there was the Spore Cloak incident back in season 2 of Dragonflight, and Spore Cloak was super good, but you know, maybe they don't have to be that good, but actually making it so that somebody could decide, hey, I'm a tank, I'm going to put on this Captured Starlight embellishment. I was thinking about doing it, and then I just looked at the numbers, and I was like, oh, I really can't do this. Like, I had a lot of characters where I'm just looking at it, I'm like, man, I don't really have great, strong offensive embellishment options. Yeah, let me look at this defensive one. Oh, it's just such garbage that I can't consider it. That sort of thing just makes no sense to me. So I'm just so confused about what they're doing with the embellishment system. The item level side of it as well, the fact that you have to put on a piece of gear that goes lower eye level than Myth does, and then there's the Ascendances, which go on weapons. Obviously, the fact that, you know, this only matters to players who can get access.
Like, Myth Track would actually be fine if crafted gear could be upgraded to the same item level.
To myth weapons, which for a lot of players you're waiting on Vault RNG to see if you can get one of those. I get that, and I think it's nice that you can craft into these slots and replace it, but something like making your embellished slot have +3 item level so that it isn't lower eye level than what you can actually upgrade with your gear, I think would be a really nice buff to make it feel a little bit less bad. Especially, dude, I know players who crafted their, you know, weapon or something, chest piece, shoulders, some big slot like that, and then they got it in their vault the next week, and it's like, it's a super feel bad because then you take that item and your craft is bricked for.
They won't change it though, because the amount of gold you need to put into crafting is going to keep selling tokens for Blizzards.
Yeah, I think having an item be embellished, give it +3 item levels, would be a really cool way to actually have it, you know, be a little bit less of a feel bad and a little bit something more you can commit to doing. And then they could nerf Ascendance so that, or make it go on stuff that isn't just weapons, because right now it feels like Ascendance is a OP embellishment that's balanced by the fact that it goes on weapons, and therefore you're giving up potential item level on your weapons compared to a fully upgraded myth weapon, which I think is a fine trade-off in a world maybe where there are other interesting embellishments, and then the problem is they just didn't actually make any other interesting embellishments this expansion. So yeah, I'm very confused about what the idea was with embellishments, because it feels like you go to, like, there's a reason why when you go to In-N-Out, their menu has 6 items on it, and it feels like this is going to In-N-Out and their menu still has 6 items on it, but they've also randomly added 50 extra items that are just all garbage. And it's like, you're still just going to pick between these 6 ones, but like, what are these other ones even doing here? And the fact that there's now sushi on the menu at In-N-Out, either I'm going to accidentally...
They didn't make anything good in Dragonflight though, unless it was just unplayed. But I think just remove embellishments. Let us craft gear, but remove embellishments.
Try it and then, you know, throw up and get food poisoning. Or, you know, they could actually make it good and then there'd be sushi.
What is this example though?
Alright, next one. We are back on my Demon Hunter because why do 90-second cooldowns not reset when the boss resets combat? They've added a bunch of tech to remove buffs from you or something like that when bosses get pulled, which is great, but they just reset 2-minute cooldowns, but not 1 minute 30-second cooldowns.
See, like, you've just listed really passive ones which didn't change your gameplay at all. Like, they were so boring. Lariat was cringe, didn't change your gameplay at all, and was just RNG if it made you, like, just how much better it made you. Like, nah. Lariat sucked. Spore Cloak, I don't remember exactly what it did, but I think it sort of gave a second life. But I don't know, that also just doesn't change anything. They might as well not exist. They literally might as well not exist. What do they realistically add to the game that balance changes couldn't sort out? Torrent doesn't reset? Oh, okay. I would just make everything reset on a boss pool. Big absorb shields so squishies could actually live the fight. I mean, surely we just get a discipline powered shield and GG. Like, I don't know. Like, that's just passive and I get an absorb shield? Wow. If it was something active where I could bolster my defensive, sure. What if our disc was shit? Replace him.
So if you wipe on a boss right after you've pressed your 90-second CDs, or your 2-minute trinkets,
replace him or
don't
teach him.
reset, as well, then all of a sudden you put up a pull timer and you're like, okay, let's do a slash pull 30. And then somebody else is like, oh no, I need 50. I need a minute. And you're just like, oh, why? Why is it like
I
this?
agree
What
with this.
possible downside could there be to resetting 90-second cooldowns that doesn't already exist on resetting 2-minute cooldowns? I can't.
Like, what is Blizzard thinking? Oh, but they might abuse this to kill trash faster. Oh no, it's not like trash is irrelevant anyway. Like, just reset everything. Anything with a longer cooldown than 1 second should just be reset. Every cooldown reset. You already do it anyway. Oh, well there you go. There's no downside then. The more they let reset, the better. Kill trash, you have a hunter stand at sticks and continue reset the boss.
And explain it. And finally, let's talk a little bit about Dinars. I've already talked a lot about Dinars in my previous videos about the topic, so I'm not going to rant too much. In fact, I'm not going to rant at all about the, you know...
If this is going to be like, well, I have to kill a boss to get loot. Bro, they've literally taken, like, a big chunk of RNG out of your gearing. This is fine. I don't see a problem with the Dino system. Like, oh, it's not insanely OP as it was in Fated and Awakened. And it's still a massive positive.
Heroic myth track stuff. Suffice it to say, I disagree with that, but I didn't want to rehash that in this video. The thing I'm confused about is why isn't there a catch-up mechanic if you fall behind?
Okay, catch-up, I could agree with. There should be a catch-up. That would be really good. If there's, yeah. No catch-up's really dumb. Even if you have to, like, grind extra to do it, like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, as someone who doesn't have access to like the really best items I'm gonna want to get, I think it's a fair system. Like, oh, I haven't killed Mythic One-Armed Bandit, then I should not be able to get Mythic House of Cards. It is that simple.
On dinars. So the way that it works is,
but I still don't think Mythic should be gear progression.
You get 3 dinars that week. So if you come and join the party late, you can do that quest, and then you can get the quest again.
No, they don't have catch-ups to this one system. Yeah, it is fair. I wouldn't have access to it without the diner system either. It is completely true. It's completely true, and it's fine. That's how it should be. Like I said, though, I still think it would be better if Mythic was just seen as a challenge mode and not a way to gear, but I don't mind it. But like in the diner system's current iteration, this is fine.
And do it for 1
the way
dinar
the game
to get
is.
to your 4th dinar. But aside from that, you can't do multiple dinars in a week. So right now, at the time of recording this, I'm on the week of the 5th dinar. If you haven't already started collecting your dinars now, you'll be behind anybody else who does it. You can do the first 2 weeks at the same time, but all of the future weeks are gated to be done on separate weeks than each other. Now, presumably, you're still going to be able to get to your 9 total dinars. You're just going to get there a week later than everybody else. But if somebody comes and joins rejoins the game, they take a couple of weeks off, and they come back in July, is it a big deal that they're going to be missing their dinar items for a little while? No, it's not a huge deal. But why, though? Why can't they just do the quest multiple times and catch up? Why is what is the benefit
let them farm to catch up?
Punishing somebody on their alt who didn't log in for a week on that character, and now they're going to get their dinar item later. Is it a big deal? Are they going to need that?
Like, it's literally an MMO, an MMORPG. Why can't we just get a grind to catch up? Simple.
Dinar item. No. Are they going to feel bad? Yes. So why do they need to feel bad? That feeling bad is a downside that should be serving a game purpose of some kind, and I don't think it is in this case. I think that there's no reason that we need to be making people feel bad. That's a similar argument to some of the other problems I have with dinars, but I think it's especially true when it comes to the fact that that weekly quest isn't just repeatable up to the point where everybody else
just far agree with us.
With it. In particular as well, dude. So one of my guildies just didn't turn in the quest by accident, and now he's just behind by a week as well. And it's just such an unfortunate thing. I know there's some conspiracy theories on Reddit that are like, hey, they intentionally made the dinars suck in every possible way this season, so players would stop saying they wanted them. And I don't think that's what's going on here. I think this is just a case of like, hey, we didn't really think about it. Plus, we think that just getting your 1 per week is fine. And
I reckon Blizzard might actually throw the catch-up system a bit later in the patch, is it does feel very much like we forgot to do this, or just a misjudgment. If they don't know, then that's also quite typical of Blizzard not to fix their problems.
You'll eventually catch up to the cap of 9 because the cap is going to stop anybody else. So if it stops other people and doesn't stop you, you'll eventually get to the same point as them. But in practice, I think that's just not the way that people engage with these sorts of systems. And how they feel about it is going to be if anybody misses even a single week, except for randomly that first week, or that second week.
That belt, though, is such a dumb idea. Like, Onyx Amulet, such a bad addition to the game. Cersei's Signet, the same. Why are they doing the belt? Who likes it?
You could miss for free, but any of the other weeks, if you missed any of those other weeks, I guess it was the first week you could miss for free if you came
just
back.
Bad decisions.
You could catch up.
Really bad decisions.
Anybody who's missed any of the other weeks, they are just gonna feel bad, and I don't think they need.
It's like, this is the thing. Delves have been good because you haven't had to do it. Now, they're making the same mistake they made with Torghast, they made with Visions, they made with Island Expeditions, they made with all their side content. They make things really unfun by making you have to do it. When you don't have to do it, and it is an option, it remains very fun. When you can do stuff at your own pace, it's great. As I've said before, WoW needs more content that you want to do rather than have to do. You make someone have to do it, then all of a sudden, this content, which is really fun, becomes really unfun. it's not a hard concept, and how Blizzard haven't really gotten their mind around this, I do not understand in the slightest. More content that you want to do than have to do. That simple.
So, luckily this is something that they can change pretty easily, just by making that adjustment, and they could do it this week, next week, the week after that.
Trying to make a point cringe. What the hell,
basically there'd be no downside. There's not yet any pain except for the psychic pain, but it's not like you could have earned your third dinar yet, or your second dinar yet, even at the time of recording this. So I think it would be a really good change for Blizzard to put this in this reset, a little bit of catch up for that.
Yes.
And finally, the PTR. So there was a interview with Paul Cubitt and Maria.
Yes, let me talk about the PTR first. Stop doing the PTR, stop doing the beta, stop doing the alpha. Let us see what's in the game on launch. I do not care about your WoW partner program where you give them exclusive information before things comes out. Because when they say give us that information, when it's all posted on Twitter, I'm bored before the patch is even released. I'm sure there's plenty of other players who are like this as well. There is not much fun in having everything figured out before you get into the new content. There was a sort of discourse done recently in the ARPG community. I think Quinn did a video on this sort of stuff as well, and it was done really well. But basically the essence of it is like, when you give certain people access to beta and alpha and PTR and whatnot, and when people have discovered everything there is to discover before the patch comes out, then you lose that feeling of discovery, of course, and it's boring. Like, no one's going to be that guy to be like, yo, I discovered this cool interaction in the season. It's like, no. Someone's done it before you. Someone who got the special access key has figured out everything before you get a chance to discover anything. Like, playing a solved game is much less interesting than playing an unsolved game. It is simple as. I don't care if it reduces competitive aspects. You shouldn't be doing it for the competitive aspects. Like, as we said earlier, the game as a whole should be developed around all the lower stuff before the higher stuff. Stop sharing everything before it's even out. And I don't care if the game's buggier. I really don't care. If there's game-breaking bugs coming out, well, first of all, maybe you should have hired some testers. Second of all, have more confidence in your product. I would rather play a buggy, unsolved game than play a completely solved game. The less you know about a new game, the more exciting it is. It's been studied and proven psychologically. True. That is very true. I haven't seen the details of these studies though, and maybe I'll give it a read at some point. But definitely, exploring the unknown is much more enjoyable than seeing everything that's going to happen. Like, how many people realistically watch a movie that they already know the plot to? Not many people. It's boring. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. Let people go out and discover and see for themselves. Like, it was so boring when in WoW's 20th anniversary thing or whatever, they're like, oh, and the next season is goblins and undermine. Woo! Okay, so why should I care? You've told, like, without me having to pay for your experience, you've told me what the experience is going to be. I have that information. There's not much point in me playing. Like, if I were just a casual WoW enjoyer and I didn't get most of my viewership from playing WoW, I can tell you right now, I would not have renewed my sub this year. I would not. I probably also wouldn't be buying more expansions. I would not keep playing this game. I don't have to. I get told what's coming up before it comes up. There is no discovery needed. You tell me everything for free. Like, it's that simple.
Hamilton, but why though? I'll put the link to the Wowhead post and the full interview down in the description below. But one of the things that happened here was discussion about various nerfs that happened, and one of the things they came up with was it would help us if we had more people on the PTR. Clearly, that's true.
Yeah, it would help us if we had more people on the PTR because we're too greedy to pay testers. You should not have one player on the PTR. You should have 0 players on that PTR. Not a single person should be on a PTR. A PTR should not exist. Like, don't cry because you had a few players on the PTR. That should probably say to you that you shouldn't have a PTR.
They'll just always prefer to have more people on the PTR, and please come play PTR. And I know this has
Cringe.
spawned a lot of kind of hate. There's been a lot of different lines of attack at Blizzard over this line. One of those is like, hey, you fired your whole QA department, and now you're trying to get us to come test your game for free, which I'm certainly somewhat sympathetic to that one, although I wouldn't say they fired their whole QA department or anything, but
they fired enough of it.
Reports of various QA testers getting laid off, although I would imagine that in a lot of cases those decisions aren't being made by the devs, and in a lot of cases the devs that are saying this are the same people that would not have chosen to fire or lay off.
I mean, the hate should be directed behind the people making these awful decisions. They're still PTR, which is a problem. Best part of that statement is that bugs are usually reported months and months before the patch releases, and Blizzard let the bugs go through. Yep, even with all these testers, they get ignored. It's like, you know what's really funny to me? There's some people in the WoW community out here who will go and test Alpha, go and test Beta, go and test PTR, and will contribute to ruining the experience of discovering all the new features. But, like, on top of the fact that you're being a QA tester for free, you're not getting paid for it, you know what else is happening? Your efforts are being ignored. You're working for free and not even bringing about positive change because the work you're doing is getting thrown in the bin. Like, I just find that incredibly funny. Would you prefer more bugs on release and no PTR, or less bugs on release and more the sense of discovery? Huh? Do you mean would I prefer more bugs on release and no PTR, or less bugs and less discovery? Because I would prefer it like I would prefer the game to be riddled with bugs, but I'm finding new stuff. I'd rather have a new experience. Like, I don't watch movies that are spoiled to me. It's as simple as. Even if the movie's bad, I'm more likely to watch it if I don't know what it's about.
For stop contracting with these various QA places. The other one is, hey, we test a lot of PTR and we report these bugs and they go unfixed. And obviously that's a hard problem for Blizzard to fix, right? To some extent, they're going to get 60,000 reports every PTR, and it's a very hard job of filtering through those. And
actually, it's not a hard problem to fix. What you simply do is introduce PTR. No, not public test round, private test round, and get your testers to do it. And then they will report necessary stuff. Instead of having a swarm of players all like, this. No. You have the team working on it. Not random people, but a team of people who know what they're doing. And they will report the bugs, and they will sort it. And at the end of the day, even with PTR, like public test rounds and private test rounds, and like having a testing team in general, you're still gonna get bugs regardless. You're still getting bugs. If it were pristine, completely polished product, that might be fine. But no, we don't get that. But you know, still, give me the bugs, give me the discovery. I don't care.
And on the one hand, you know, they're trying, you think about like, oh man, my class has had this bugged interaction where if I press Shaylin's gift twice, it does a lot more healing. But that doesn't break the game in the way that, you know, the problem with, say, the Nightfall scenario at the start of patch 11.1.5 was just literally broken if there were more than like 5 people in the shard trying to do it for the first week of that. That's the kind of thing where it's like, oh, this is game breaking, obviously, for a part of the game that a lot of high-end players consider irrelevant, which is outdoor world content. They would instead consider the class bugs and stuff to be more important.
That's another problem with PTR. Like, you're not getting people going in to test everything to the extent it should be testing. Your players won't do that. The people who go and test it are your content creators looking to get an edge and be the first one to report on something so that they get all the clicks and the views. Yeah? If you have actual testers, then they are going to test things properly. Players will not test things properly. You're not, like, you can get way more people playing PTR, sure, but you're still going to get that same bug happening. Why? Because they're not going to test that for you. It was also reported, even funnier. Even funnier.
But those are less like game breaking, right? And so Blizzard would really like people to come and test the PTR, especially for stuff like stress testing things.
And we would really like Blizzard to hire some testers.
Oops, like the Nightfall scenario, right? But even stuff like the class.
Like, imagine paying for a game and paying for a sub, only to also work for them for free and be ignored. That is like insane cuck behavior.
Bugs. I think that there's definitely a lot of upside on Blizzard.
Literally paying to work.
You know,
yeah, sorry, I'm wrong. You don't work for free. You pay to work for Blizzard. Insane.
If you go into like every single class Discord, there's usually a list or like a pinned comment in one of these channels that's like, hey, here's all the known bugs with our spec. Is it true that Blizzard is probably pretty aware of most of these and they're just lower priority or, you know, hard things to fix? Maybe, but certainly fixing those I think would help players feel like their PTR test.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that, and then they banned people for it as well, rightfully so, is abusing a bug. However, maybe they should have banned everyone abusing bugs and not just, you know, let their favourite people go through. But yeah, if that, like, that on the PTR's, like, reported and, like, they still don't fix it, like, come on. Why?
Testing was more important, and reporting bugs with upcoming content is something where very often we will know about the bugs that are going to...
They should have. I agree. The first thing is that they should have fixed it. The second thing is, oh, well, people are abusing an exploit. Ban. Like, both are perfectly acceptable. But yeah, if they're sitting there like, oh, people don't play the PTR, so we don't have the knowledge to know what to fix. Well, you do have the knowledge, you're being lazy and bad. Maybe you hired some more workers, all of this would also be picked up on. But no, you want to sack them all.
Be in the game for quite a long time during the PTR testing. But I don't really want to complain too much about that because I feel like that's just natural, like, live service game prioritization of your very limited resources that they have. Obviously, a lot of us can be looking at this and be like, well, they're a $7 trillion company and, you know, they can't afford to spend $30 more on another QA tester or whatever. Obviously, those numbers are not real, but people make those sorts of arguments. But I'm very sympathetic to the idea that, like, yeah, Blizzard...
Yeah, what, like a QA's wage is like 30 grand a year? 40 grand? Like, Blizzard can definitely afford some more.
They're just going to try and do, you know, more with less, right? And
or at least on a lower level, I think they are. At least the job postings that I see most of the time. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to hire that if you're in Blizzard's shoes. I mean, you literally have the backing of Microsoft as well. Surely something can be done. Oh, sorry. There we go. It is Microsoft. We're not here for quality. We're here about quantity of money.
Certain types of non-game breaking bugs
Found the problem.
is to be expected. If they want more people to come play PTR though, they could do something, and this would be, like, in particular, if they want stuff like Nightfall to get stress tested more, they could give us a reason to do so beyond just helping out the multi-million-dollar company out of the goodness of our heart, or being a content creator. That's another reason that people actually go do this, is some of the big content creators will go and actually try and get footage of this for their videos or whatever. But aside from that, why would some normal person who's playing World of Warcraft be like, hey, do I want to log in and play WoW, or do I want to...
So, can you remind me when Microsoft's influence started taking over? If you wouldn't mind, and then also, like, comparing it to when the game was getting much worse. You know. Albeit, there was Rona and the lawsuit as things started getting worse. And then when that finished up, there was Microsoft! Give game time reward if your PTR reports led to a bug fix or something? No! No PTR! That's the solution! No PTR!
To go test the Nightfall scenario, which I'm going to want to do exactly the same amount of times so that I can get the Flames Radiance rep. That's the reward I care about when it actually comes out. So do I just want to do it an extra time without those rewards? No. But what if Blizzard put a reward there? there are rewards that Blizzard gives you that incentivize you to like go do MDI.
This is cope. Rewards for testing is so cope. Like, you are going in and doing a job. Yeah? For a company which really should be hiring people to do this job. You're also not going to do the job as well as a hired worker is going to do, a professional is going to do. You're not. So you're like, this is not going to lead to an absolute net positive for the game. They don't need rewards and incentivizations for PTR. They need a team to work on to do it.
MDI time trials. You get a banner for doing that. That's really sick. What if there were just...
Yeah, there's the reward for you going and falsely populating competitive servers. I'm not sure what that does. Maybe boost metrics and whatnot, so they can say, "Oh, this is very popular," even though people are just doing it for a banner and might not care.
Banners for doing a certain amount of PTR testing each cycle around. Now, is that something where me saying that is making certain collectors wince because they're like, oh no, then I would actually go do PTR and not enjoy it? You know, yeah, maybe, but at least Blizzard would accomplish the objective of getting enough people to maybe stress test these things that otherwise are going untested.
And hire workers
in a truly game-breaking, that's kind of damaging to the more casual player base, which, as always, is a very important part of the player base that often gets missed, especially in discussions from high-end players.
And they wouldn't if they hired more workers.
Such as myself. Maybe, yeah, so maybe that would be worth doing. I don't know.
Or maybe it'd just be worth hiring more workers.
Thing. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Again, all these things are said from a place of I really like this game, and I think there's some low-hanging fruit that they can fix to make this game a lot better, but I think it's already in a really good place in a lot of ways. The raids, the dungeons recently have been great. I've been having a lot of fun this expansion, so, you know, a lot of these...
I really think the game's in a really good place. The raids, the dungeons are good. So you mean a very small amount of small part of the game is good? You know, leveling is boring as. Open world content sucks. PvP is in dire straits. Even collecting, there's no reason to do it because Remix exists now. Like... What do you mean the game's in a good space? Why is the game's population not actually soaring, like, above Shadowlands? Like, why is Shadowlands launch still the most recent peak from when I go and look on these data websites? Like, after BFA, why was Shadowlands launch the peak until now? And I'm not saying now's a new peak. It's just been a... No, it's not in a good space. There's plenty of people complaining about this game. There is definitely a mob mentality which shuts down people complaining about this game. People who have quit the game, who want to see the game get better and would love to return to the game, get shut down with the classic, "Oh, well, you're not playing the game anymore." Like, no, there's an insane amount of cope which blocks any form of criticism for this game. You can't say the game's in a good space at the moment. You can't. Like, okay, you can say maybe the niche content that you play is in a good space. Sure. That's it. I even find it crazy, like, the complaints in this video, which are like, yeah, no, like, so much against dungeons, the fundamentals of how some of them are working and being really unfun, in his words. Like, nah, that is cope. There's a lot of complaining and it all gets shut down. I don't see there being much backing for people bringing up legitimate criticisms. I only see, like, a mass wave of cope and a mass wave of people saying your criticisms are invalid. Like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of people who do also complain, they don't really put anything to their point, but just about everything gets shut down. Any valid criticism. Like, yeah, sure. I will say Narubar Palace was a really fun raid in my opinion. There was too much weak aura needed. They need to sort out the weak aura problem massively. The dungeons of this expansion, like what the war within dungeons, not everything they brought back, but the war within dungeons themselves, as an entire the dungeon pool in its entirety, I think it's probably the best we've had since BFA. I do think that this dungeon set is really fun. Well, I wouldn't say really fun, but like there's nothing which really feels like a slog to play. And there are definitely some enjoyable parts in all of the dungeons out at the moment. They haven't done any stupid mega dungeons which feel horrible to play. Like, yeah, overall it's a pretty decent dungeon set. Disagree about City of Threads and Stone Vault? City of Threads, like, I don't see the problem. Stone Vault, I'd say it was probably overtuned, and had some awkward mechanics, but it doesn't come anywhere near close to the bad dungeons we've had in prior X-Packs. It's not like we've got a Halls of Infusion, as an example. That dungeon was AIDS. I hated it. Way too open for what it was. So much running. So boring. Had so many cringe mechanics. It's like, no. What's bad then? The story, the leveling, the PvP, the endgame, the open world content, just casual content in general. You liked running away from frogs all the time? What the hell? You liked all the massive walks back in Halls of Infusion? I felt more of that dungeon was just holding W than it was playing the actual game. Like, I don't know. Even so, like, that run after the first boss just to get to the next area, if you're turning a left, is long and boring. If you're going dead ahead, is into that crappy frog room. Most of WoW's expansion are mainly just dungeons and raids. What, you mean the modern ones which we've been considering failures? You mean the standard we want the game to move away is the standard we're aiming for? Or what? Even the old ones? No, objectively wrong. Objectively wrong. There was definitely some side content in prior expansions. Way more than what we've had in the last three. Way more. And then also PvP was still very much a major part of pretty much all expansions. Maybe before Dragonflight. Shadowlands, they actually did try with PvP a bit. And then, yeah, the story used to be absolutely massive in prior expansions. Like, you cannot tell me Legion was not massively story-driven. For a lot currently, it's purely raid and dungeons. Yeah. Yes. This is the point I'm making, though. In the past, they used to focus on all this sort of other stuff, and there was a massive population. Sure, you might have just, like, closed your eyes to it and ignored it, but objectively speaking, there was huge populations for all of that stuff. Now there isn't. Now it is just raids and dungeons, because it's the only thing they work on. Give you an example of the old X-Packs not being mainly dungeons and raids. I just gave you some. Like, Tell me how Legion was not mainly story driven. Please. Please tell me how that was not an expansion that was not mainly story driven. I would love to hear. I would honestly love to hear how that wasn't one of the main features. Even tell me how PvP wasn't mainly wasn't a main feature of Legion, and Battle for Azeroth as well. No, you're wrong. Like, what do you mean? Like, how could story not be considered as a major part of the game? What? I don't play on people doing the open world and other content. Exactly. Look at the Heart of Azeroth and artifacts. You were doing world quests all the time. It was just as baked into the game as everything else was. No, they did PvP going in Shadowlands. I mean, like, what are you on about? Like, and that's quintessentially a part of the game. Like, what? It's one of the cores. Like, oh, and I'm sorry if your only focus is to look at raids and dungeons and you want to turn a blind eye to everything else. But even something you turn a blind eye to still exists. It does. It is still core. TBC, the introduction of arenas. Massive. TBC arenas were definitely massive. And they stayed massive in Wrath as well. And we had epic BGs coming in. So you can't tell me that there wasn't a massive content to do with PvP back then. They even brought in Wintergrasp as a whole as an open world PvP zone. Dailies were still massive in those expansions as well. What is new, what is new is for dungeons and raids to only be in the focus. That is what is new. Dungeons and raids have always been a focus, like everything else used to always be a focus. Story used to be a focus. PvP used to be a focus. Open world, casual content used to be a focus. Like, that is objective. That was the case. Dungeons and raids also were a focus, but now they're the only things that are a focus. I mean, like, if you're not counting story as something you do, then you are being neglectful, because that is massively something you go through and you experience. That, for a lot of people, that's probably something they used to buy into a lot. Leveling is like almost story, but no, story goes on beyond leveling as well. It's its own category. The leveling experience is its own thing, which has kind of been moved away from quite a bit recently. But the leveling experience could be made way better than dungeon spamming.